Welcome to the Halloween Monster Bash, starring John Astin, featuring those all-time classic moments of monster movie merriment. Also starring Bobby Kelton, Rhonda Shear.
Don't forget me.
And him. I'm Bobby Bordeth Pickett, and I'll perform a medley of my hit, Monster Mash. All this in a cast of thousands, hundreds.
Maybe you better just make that a cast of several.
And a cast of several. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's John Astin.
Yes, it's the Halloween Monster Bash. And trust me, gang, tonight you're in for a real treat. Because tonight we got a lot of laughs and thrills. Tonight we have a lot of sound effects. What I like more than a really good scary movie is a really bad scary movie. And tonight we've scared up scenes from some of the baddest. Take the one called The Creature from the Haunted Sea.
No thanks, Pally. You take it.
Or Corpse Vanishes with Bela Lugosi. Or The Terror, starring Boris Karloff and a new kid on the block named Jack Nicholson. There's Claude Rains in The Evil Mind. Frankie Avalon in Bloodsong. From the Night of the Living Dead to Dementia 13. Some of the classics and the not-so-classics. It's just our way of, well, celebrating Halloween.
Right, John. It's also just our way of killing a little time in between the commercials.
And let's kick things off with a look at one of the legends of horror, Bela Lugosi.
What daughter?
Of course, he was the most famous Count Dracula of them all.
But whatever the movie, whatever the role, you could always count on a brilliant performance.
Brilliant, but unbalanced.
Unbalanced, kind of like my checkbook.
But a very good man, Dr. Orloff.
In this 1939 chiller, one called The Human Monster, Lugosi plays a mad doctor named Orloff.
That's right, Ludwig Orloff, M.D. M.D. stands for Mad Doctor.
And when this doctor makes house calls, look out.
Yeah, just watch his bedside manner with this poor devil.
Get up. You're blind and you can't speak. But you can hear. And that will never do.
Well, all I can say is no wonder malpractice coverage has gone through the roof.
I'm a doctor. Can I help?
It's a shade too late for a second opinion, wouldn't you say?
Okay, now here's a wee taste of a rather macabre tale. One called Dementia 13.
I gotta tell you, Bobby, when I heard the title of this one, Dementia 13, I thought it was supposed to be some kind of sequel.
Come on, did you really?
Yes, I did. But if it is a sequel, I'd just like to know whatever happened to 1 through 12.
Hey, Rhonda.
I mean, I wasn't able to find 1 through 12 in my video store.
Rhonda, they never even made 1 through 12.
Aha! I didn't think so. That's deceptive advertising, if you ask me.
Yeah, but nobody's asking you, little girl.
Well, it's still confusing. And don't call me little girl.
The film was made back in the 60s, a time known to many as the swinging 60s. Swinging was considered okay back then, unless the swinger had an axe in his hands.
Then it could, like, get to be like a real drag, like, man.
Yeah, bummer, dude.
Now, here's a moment that I found rather touching.
Don't touch her!
Whoops! sort of made this one up as they went along, so it never did make very much sense.
But do you know who directed this picture, Rhonda? Francis Ford Coppola. And of course, he later went on to make some real biggies. Important pictures like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now.
Gee, and I bet he's awful glad you brought up his name tonight.
He practically begged me.
Are you stuck in a boring, going-nowhere job? Then you should call Soderman's School of Welding. Yes, take up spot welding for fun and profit. Earn big bucks, impress the chicks, make lots of neat things. Remember our motto, welding is more than just a job. It's something you can do with your hands. Call now.
The fun has just begun, so stay right there. Or that's here. Well, stay where you are. The Halloween Monster Bash continues after these words from the advertisers. Interlude with James Mason at the Steinway. We proudly present for your listening pleasure the unique vocal stylings of Miss Abigail Penberthy. Miss Penberthy's selection is the ever-popular La La song.
Abigail, bravo, yes!
Aunt her, the sound of one fool clapping.
Well, I like the La La song.
Hey, Rhonda, you know that really was James Mason at the Steinway?
Gee, Bobby, pardon my ignorance, but what's a Steinway?
What's a Steinway? Oh, I'd say maybe about a half a pound till you fill it up with beer.
I don't think I heard that. All aboard, gang. Let's take a ride on the Horror Express. This one stars Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing.
The following report to the Royal Geological Society by the undersigned Alexander Saxton is a true and faithful account of events that befell the Society's expedition in Manchuria. As the leader of the expedition, I must accept responsibility for its ending in disaster, but I will leave to the judgment of the honorable members the decision as to where the blame for the catastrophe lies.
Chris Lee plays an archaeologist who unearths a rare fossil, perhaps the missing link, or the frozen remains of the abominable snowman. Whatever it is, it could certainly use a stiff brandy. When somebody turns up the heat, this fossil thaws out. What do you think happens next?
Well, for openers, I'll bet it stings up the joint.
Well, believe it or not, guys and ghouls, it comes to life. Yeah, this millions of years old fossil actually comes to life, and naturally, it starts running amok. Naturally. Wrecking all sorts of havoc aboard the Trans-Siberian Railway.
My God. It's the baggage man.
What was in there?
I told you, a fossil, part ape, part man. It lived 2 million years ago.
Are you telling me that an ape that lived 2 million years ago got onto that crate, killed the baggage man and put him in there, then locked everything up neat and tidy and got away?
Yes, I am. It's alive. It must be.
Lock him up. We'll search the train and find it, whatever it is, and destroy it.
But if it's alive...
I want this kept quiet. I don't want to panic the passengers.
That's right. The last thing you ever want to do is panic people when they're about to be scragged by some big old hairy thing. Now, just when you buy the premise, Bigfoot takes the A train. Pow! They throw you a real curve. It seems that this walking area rug is really only some kind of host, not a ghost, host, occupied by this alien life force that came to Earth millions of years ago. Talk about your complications. And when they shoot the creature, that isn't the end of things either, because when that happens, the alien life force simply switches bodies. It first takes over the body of the police inspector, putting a whole new spin on that old expression, the long arm of the law. Then it takes up residence in this guy, the Mad Monk of Minsk, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Wolfman Jack. And it wasn't very hard to spot the host. All you had to do was turn out the lights. One of the side effects of being a host was coming down with an acute case of pink eye, so severe it glowed in the dark. Sure would have been nice to have the Visine concession on that train. Telly Savalas appears in a cameo. At least, I think that's a cameo he's wearing.
Are you a countess?
I'm an American, and I'm not accustomed to being bullied by foreigners. That man, he's the one who wouldn't let us get off the train. He's responsible.
His portrayal of a wacko Cossack was enough to set Glasnost back about 20 years.
Your Excellency, I'm a police inspector. Everybody's under arrest.
Including you. Who are the killers? Who are the troublemakers? Who are the foreign influences, huh? Oh! Don't worry. I'll smoke them out. What's he raving about?
Good question. Do you think he's trying to sign those people up for the Players Club?
Excuse me, madam. Have we met before?
I'm Helen Cooper, Harry's wife.
Harry's wife? Didn't know he had a wife. Shocked to his girlfriend. Now, here's an oldie but oldie for you. One called The Evil Mind.
There's nothing wrong with having an evil mind.
So, Bobby, who's the guy in the blindfold?
That's Claude Rains, and he's wearing a blindfold because he's a clairvoyant.
Clara, what's it?
A clairvoyant, Rhonda. You know, somebody with second sight.
Gee, too bad he didn't have first sight. Then he wouldn't be tripping over things.
I think somebody was just having a little fun with Claude. They switched blindfolds and gave him the one without the holes.
Ah, so he's a fake.
A fake and a charlatan.
No, I'm not.
And a touchy one at that.
Claude Rains. Now, why do I know him?
Well, you might remember him because he later went on to appear as the Invisible Man.
Ah, that's right.
Or maybe I should say he went on to disappear as the Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man. Wasn't he the guy who turned an ace bandage into a fashion statement?
Cute, Rhonda. The girl's always thinking fashion. Then something happens to Claude. He develops real clairvoyance. He actually can see into the future.
Oh, and I suppose he uses his power to predict disaster and saves the world from starvation, pestilence, and war.
Actually, he uses his power to pick the ponies. In one afternoon, he hits 3 exactas, the daily double, and the pick 6. Seriously, he does predict disaster, for all the good it does him.
Be about the Humber shop.
I'm not here to warn you, to save you from the terror which I know is coming. I implore you, I beseech you, for the sake of your wives, your mothers, and your sons. Don't go on the night shift!
You're mad! Get back to your work, all of you!
Everybody thinks he's nuts, except for his wife. And even she's starting to have her doubts.
Oh, Max, I'm fighting a battle for your mind, and I've got to win it. If you'll only use your strength of will.
What strength of will? Against?
What?
Gosh, that's embarrassing. Claude just forgot his lines.
Now, Rhonda, from that scene, were you able to recognize his co-star?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, that was the lovely Fay Ray.
That's right. It was Fay Ray. How'd you know that?
Cue cards, Bobby. I read the cue cards.
Yeah.
Besides, I remember her from another monster classic, King Kong.
Right.
She was Kong's main squeeze.
Yeah, some girls just like him big and stupid.
So anyway, how does this one end?
Well, Claude's prediction proved to be right, much to everybody's chagrin. And if you can believe this, they end up blaming him for the disaster. Like it was his fault that the tunnel collapsed. I mean, he warned them not to go on the night shift, didn't he? He told them what would happen if they did. I guess maybe they figured that if they were getting a shaft job, then he ought to get one too.
Stay tuned for more of the Halloween Monster Bash. But right now, it's time for a word from our sponsor.
But I wanted a Bud Light.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, in keeping with the spirit of Halloween, and as a special tribute to Edgar Allan Poe, Mr. John Aston reads selected passages from the Master's immortal classic...
Wait! Don't tell me! Poe's Raven?
Nah, he ain't even angry.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
Who's that rapping at the chamber door? Quote the crazy old raven, nevermore. What you mean there, bird, with your nevermore? Think I'll ask that chick that they callin'? Or say, sweet Lenore, could you tell me what for? Could you tell me what he mean by nevermore? Nevermore, nevermore.
What do you know? A plain white rapper. A while ago, we showed you Bela Lugosi in scenes from The Human Monster. Now we'd like to serve up a couple more examples of Lugosi's work. This is sort of what you call back-to-back, Bela to Bela.
Interesting concept.
In this one, The Invisible Ghost, Lugosi plays a guy who's kind of over the edge.
Another madman?
Yeah. See, he started going Looney Tunes after he lost his wife.
Oh, you mean she's dead?
No, I didn't say that. She's just lost. For a while, they even had her picture on milk cartons.
How sad.
Yeah, but that didn't help. People would confuse her with the picture of the cow. But every once in a while, she'd mysteriously turn up. He'd look out the window and see her down there on the front lawn.
Oh, is that her?
No, that's the cow. Wait a minute. It is her. I knew it was her all along. And every time Lugosi would see her, it had this strange effect on him.
Yeah, look, it makes him start to walk funny.
And that's not all. It brings out the beast in him.
Why, Mr. Kitzler.
Just watch him now, as he goes into the maid's bedroom and flashes her.
I can't watch this.
Sure you can. He's still got his clothes on under that robe. The maid's in shock. She's never been flashed by a man with all his clothes on before. Oh, and check this out. He likes to play this little game called Peekaboo, It's You-Know-Who.
What did I do wrong?
Next time, try bringing the chick a box of candy.
Now let's take a look at one called The Corpse Vanishes.
This time, Lugosi plays a body snatcher.
The victims, or the snatchees, if you will, are all newlyweds, pretty young brides who mysteriously keel over at the altar.
And you, Phyllis Hamilton, do you take this man to be your legal, lawfully wedded husband, to love, honor, and obey, until death do you part?
I do. Oh!
I guess she never heard the one that goes, "Not tonight, honey, I've got a headache."
What a story!
Trust me, lady, it's been used to death.
This is one of the few times that Bella's given a love interest.
Even if they did sleep in separate coffins.
I'm suffering, my beloved.
Terribly. You must hurry.
I'm so sorry, but I was detained. Please forgive me.
Forgive you. You loiter and waste time while I wait here dying. Dying.
Courage. I will not let you die.
Better death than agony like this.
The studio had to search high and low to find a woman who could talk as strange as Lugosi.
Why do you beat my son so hard?
Because he's a beast, an animal, and someday I shall have to destroy him.
My poor son, why was he ever born? Can you bear to look at me now?
Of course. You're beautiful. And I shall always keep you that way. My little family.
Yeah, and what a family it is. It reminds me slightly of another family I used to know. And finally, here's a little bonus, Bella.
In this one, The Ape Man, Bella comes up with a formula for growing hair. He's on the right track, but there's only one problem. Whenever you go to rub the stuff on, you end up with these incredibly hairy palms.
The highlight of the movie comes when Lugosi signs up for dance lessons. He's trying to master that new dance craze, the lambada.
Boy, some of those dance instructors are real gorillas.
Now, for your viewing displeasure, here's a look at a little German import, something called The Devil's Nightmare. Well, at least that's what they call it here in this country. Its original German language title was Meine Hosen sind schmutzig. Or, if you will, My Pants Are Dirty. I know, I lost a little something in the translation. It always does. It starts when a bus loaded down with tourists comes to an abrupt halt, which throws everybody's voice out of sync with their lips. Watch this, I kind of like it.
Watch what you're doing, you crazy fool. You've got a peculiar way of handling your car.
Well, it's not my fault. Don't blame me for every obstacle. You see that? Looks to me as if the road's blocked.
Blocked? What for? Say, there's somebody in the field. Why don't you ask him where we are, at least?
All right. Excuse me, sir. Yes? How do we get to Hollenstadt?
Practice, practice.
Take the ferry boat. It's another 50 miles. But it never runs after sundown. I'm afraid you'll get there too late.
Is there a hotel around here?
You might ask at the castle. The Baron sometimes agrees to take paying guests.
Is it far?
It's in the opposite direction. Drive back through the village, and it's on your left.
Thanks.
The castle turns out to be a spooky old barn, the kind you might see in a bad horror movie. Wait a minute, this is a bad horror movie.
That rain outside, the castle's even spookier than ever.
Okay, Dad, we got the idea. This piece of Bavarian blight is the ancestral home of an old Nazi who dabbles in alchemy. His name's Baron von something or other. They never do bother to explain what his dabbling in alchemy has to do with the story, but what the heck? Who needs explanations? And the joint even comes complete with a butler who hasn't worked since Hogan's Heroes went off the air.
Welcome to Castle von Rumberg.
Cheerful sort of duck, isn't he? They're fresh out of those do not disturb signs, so everybody has to improvise. Well, it's probably just as well. Maids never seem to be able to read those signs anyway. Later that evening, over a hearty repast consisting of a generous serving of knockwurst and sauerkraut, Baron manages to bore everyone to tears with the story of his life.
In the 12th century, my ancestor, Siegfried von Rumberg, is said to have signed a pact with the devil.
You mean your ancestor sold his soul to the devil?
In exchange for his services, besides Siegfried's soul, Satan demanded that the eldest daughter of each generation of our family be in his service. That she become a succubus.
What is a succubus?
Oh, a kind of vampire, I think.
You're mistaken, Mr. Mason. They give the name of succubus to demons that adopt feminine appearance in order to seduce man and lead him to perdition.
It's not at all necessary to be a succubus. Everyone knows women do that quite naturally.
Personally, I don't believe in things like that.
Huh? Me neither. Do you deny the existence of the devil?
I don't believe in vampires or succubuses.
Technically, the plural of succubus would be succubi. And no, they weren't just making the whole thing up. There really is such a word, but you don't have to believe me. Look it up for yourself. Now, a little later on, we meet another of the Baron's house guests, a mysterious woman wearing an outfit that Cher would kill for. She's already heard the Baron's blather over his ancestry, so she skips dinner and opts for the cognac and strudel. With that tum-tum of hers, maybe she ought to lay off the strudel. Unbeknownst to the old Baron, she really is, in fact, his own daughter. So, yes, you're right. That makes her a succubus. Throughout the rest of this movie, whenever her makeup turns weird, somebody else dies. I know, you're saying, hey, I've seen weirder makeup than that on TV, but I keep trying to tell people this isn't makeup. So, anyway, their little vacation turns out to be less than something to write home about, as one by one, they all come to a tragic ending. The only ending that wasn't so tragic was the ending to this movie. That had audiences on their feet, cheering.
Now, Bobby, my problem with this movie is that it got to be annoying trying to watch people talk and their lips not matching what they were saying.
Yeah, Rhonda, I know what you mean. I always find myself trying to figure out what they really said before their voices got redubbed.
How does he do that?
Yeah, well, stay tuned, because we've got a lot more fun and surprises, too, coming right up on the Halloween Monster Bash.
And now, boys and girls, here's John Aston with a few pointers on Halloween etiquette.
Now, don't forget to remember these.
And remember not to forget them either.
Okay, all you snicker snatchers, what I have to say is important, so listen up. Those of you who know how to write might even want to take notes. Here's the first tip. Get yourself a swell-looking mask. You just can't go around making ugly faces. That doesn't work. Nobody gives candy to a guy who just makes ugly faces. Next tip, and your moms will sure appreciate it if you remember this one. When you go out trick-or-treating, stay off the lawn. It's dark out there, and you never know what you might step in. Here's another tip. Don't always go where the crowds go. Whenever there's a mob scene like this, be smart. Pass on it. Try the house across the street, even if it looks like nobody's home. Be sure to knock real loud. Use a heavy object if you have to. Lots of times, people are really home, but they pretend they're not, hoping you'll go away, so be persistent. Next tip, and this is so important, kiddies, don't make a pig out of yourself. Besides, it's really considered bad form to eat your goodies before you get them home. Now, if you're going to be making a jack-o'-lantern, pick yourself out a nice round pumpkin. The rounder the better. See if it rolls. This tip has to do with bobbing for apples. Yes, it can be lots of fun, but every once in a while you got to remember to come up for air. And finally, here's the most important tip of all. When you've knocked at a door and some guy that looks like this answers, forget it. Even if he wants to share his candy, brother, you don't want to take it. Okay, we've already seen quite a bit of Lugosi, so who do you want to see next?
Well, give me Boris Karloff.
Aha! Boris Karloff. Good choice.
And here he is, the old master himself, in one called The Terror.
Is that somebody who can rip phone books in half?
No, Rhonda, that would be a terror. This is terror.
My love. My love.
I'm here, Victor.
I'm weary, Ilsa. My soul cries out for relief.
There is but one way, Victor.
No. The holy covenants of God forbid it.
You will be forgiven.
I could be sure.
Take your life as you took mine. Let your own hand destroy you and bring us together forever. Forever. No more torment, Victor. Forever. Forever.
I will, Elsa. I will.
As the Baron von Lepp, a recluse and a widower, he's a man with a tortured soul.
He's also a man with tortured plumbing. Those old castles are charming until it comes to the upkeep.
Spare me the bathroom humor.
You think I'm mad, don't you?
Calm down, Boris. Nobody ever said you were mad. Maybe we said Lugosi was mad.
Perhaps we're both mad. They very cleverly, Baron. Can you also explain the violin music and the girl in the chapel last night?
Saw her again.
So you admit there's a girl?
Ilsa.
Ilsa, is that her name? Answer me, Baron.
Please, leave me in peace.
If I leave you now, Baron, I will come back with a company of my men, and I will tear this place down around your ears until I find her. Is that clear?
Now, the guy you see with Boris, he's no stranger to lunacy either.
All right, now,
That's Jack Nicholson, back when he was still sitting in the cheap seats at the Laker games.
And look, he still had plenty of hair.
Remember when he made One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah, when they gave him all of those shock treatments.
Yeah, well, maybe those shock treatments were for real.
The storyline in this one really got to be confusing.
So confusing, in fact, that somebody at the studio must have said, "Time out. We'd better explain this one to the audience. Listen."
Where's the Baron?
We must get to him. He's locked himself in the crypt.
Eric is avenged. Eric avenged? She's used the girl as a puppet to drive the Baron to suicide.
But why?
She thinks it was the Baron that killed her son. She never knew it was you.
What do you mean? He killed my Eric.
Eric is her son?
You murderer!
Oh, wait! Don't you see now it was all a lie? The Baron did return that night to find Eric with the Baroness, and he did kill her. But there was a struggle, and in the fight, it was not Eric who died, but the Baron. I killed the Baron.
And Eric is still alive?
Yeah, Eric is still alive. Now, see? That cleared everything up, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, it just put everything in the right perspective. Except maybe for this one small nagging question.
And what, pray tell, would that be, Rhonda?
Who the heck is Eric?
Okay, here's an odd little number called The Creature from the Haunted Sea.
A pretty good title for a pretty bad movie.
Yeah, but Rhonda, you know, I still kind of liked it.
You did?
Yeah, I did. Mainly because they played it for laughs.
That creature, how silly. Did you really think it?
See what I mean about playing it for laughs? But talk about your loose fit.
The uniform?
No, the dentures.
Bobby, since you like this one so much, what do you say we just watch a little of it?
Yeah, what the heck? Why not?
Sparks Moran. As a trained espionage agent, I could tell that she was attracted to me. But I wanted Maribel, and Maribel wanted Renzo, and Renzo wanted the gold.
Hey, Mark! Idiot! Keep this thing firm. Why? Oh, yes. Vamos a soldados cubanos a sumergirnos. A sumergirnos.
It's this kind of material that had audiences rolling in the aisles.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the movie only played in drive-ins. So rolling in the aisles got to be a little messy.
A lot of the story took place in a tropical locale. The writer was perhaps inspired by Gilligan's Island.
More likely by a cheap bottle of vino.
Now, I did like all the underwater stuff. That was pretty good. They had sunken treasure, exotic fish, and men doing strange things with each other.
What about that crazy-looking sea monster, Rhonda?
I was trying to figure out what it reminded me of.
Well, it kind of reminded me of walking peat moss.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Oh, and check out those peepers of his. Are those contact lenses, or are you just happy to see me? Oh.
There's plenty more to come, so stay right there. But first, our sponsors want to have a word with you.
No. Not that.
Bobby Boris Pickett performing his all-time classic, the Halloween anthem, Monster Mash.
When my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise,
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
He did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash. From my laboratory in the castle east to the master bedroom where the vampires feast, the ghouls all came from their humble abode to get a jolt from my electrode.
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
They did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash. The zombies were having fun.
In a shoot ball.
The party had just begun.
In a shoot ball.
The guests included Wolfman, Dracula, and his son. The scene was rocky, all were digging the sound. Igor on chains, backed by his baying hound. The coffin bangers were about to arrive with their vocal group, the Crypt Kicker Five.
They played the mash.
They played the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard
They
smash.
played the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They played the mash.
They played the monster mash. Out from his coffin, Jack's voice did ring. Seemed he was troubled by just one thing. Opened the lid and shook his fist and said, "Whatever happened to my Transylvania twist?"
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster
The
mash.
monster mash.
And it's a graveyard
It's
smash.
now the mash.
It's caught on in a flash.
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster mash. Now everything's cool. Drax a part of the band, and my monster mash is the hit of the band. For you, the living, this mash was meant to. When you get to my door, tell them God is sent.
Then you can mash.
Then you can monster mash.
The monster mash.
And do my graveyard smash.
Then you can mash.
You'll catch on in a flash.
Then you can mash.
Then you can monster mash.
Monster mash. Monster mash. Monster mash.
Now let's examine one of the recurring themes of the horror genre, the old monster in the lake pit. Without question, the most famous monster in the lake is the Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known to the kilt-clad Klansmen as Nessie. Over the years, Nessie has been spotted numerous times, and every now and then, she's even been known to pose for a photo opportunity.
You see that? That on the mantle? That's me Kodak. The Kodak which cost £1.10. The Kodak what took the first picture. It's printed in all the books.
Yeah, all the books. Not to mention all those tabloids in the supermarket. There's one photo opportunity that Nessie wishes maybe she'd passed on. This movie. A pair of unscrupulous promoters set out to capture Nessie. Why they'd like to capture her is anybody's guess. Maybe they plan on filling her up with helium and using her in the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, or something like that. As it turns out, Nessie is a mother-to-be, and these promoter guys stumble on one of her eggs.
But we got the whole card, man. We got something better than Nessie herself. We got her egg. How about that, huh?
Scramble that one up for breakfast and just see what it does to the old cholesterol count. Then, of course, Nessie's motherly instincts kick in, and she goes in search of a missing egg. She's obviously never read the Surgeon General's warning on smoking during pregnancy. Now, here's a part that's so hokey you have to wonder why they even left it in, but leave it in they did. See, they couldn't make that papier-mâché head do very much, so they have it do a number on this guy's collarbone, sort of like Spock did on Star Trek. Anyway, after a while, somebody must have said, let's stick that guy's head in that mouth and see if it looks any better. Of course, it didn't. But in the end, love conquers all, and Nessie was last seen running off, eloping, with a green VW bus.
I have just 2 words for this movie: inept.
Now, here's a look at a true cult classic, the original Night of the Living Dead.
Some weird kind of virus is having a really strange effect on the dearly departed. It's turning your everyday run-of-the-mill corpse into a flesh-eating ghoul. It's enough to give a vegetarian the heebie-jeebies. This character pretty much sums up the storyline when he says,
"They're coming to get you, Barbara."
Yeah, they came to get poor Barbara, all right, and they just kept on coming to get her.
Along the way, Barbara makes a new friend. And just because you like to know these things, he asked her what her favorite TV show is.
What's happening? What's happening?
You remember that old sitcom, What's Happening, don't you, Bobby?
Yeah, but I've never heard anybody claim it was their favorite before.
Now, be forewarned. Before you go out and rent this one, remember it's just a little gory.
Yeah, just a little. Like Jack the Ripper was just a little girl crazy.
In this rather gruesome scene, a child who was bitten by one of those things has become a ghoul herself.
First, she makes lunch out of her own dad's arm.
Nice presentation, but a little on the bland side.
Then she does a trowel job on her mother.
Ouch! That hurts!
Nah, you get used to it. But you know, Rhonda, now that little girl's got 2 problems. She's not only a ghoul, she's also an orphan.
Just remember, you are what you eat.
Oh, Flash! Here's a late-breaking news bulletin.
Chief, if I were surrounded by 6 or 8 of these things, would I stand a chance with them?
Well, there's no problem. If you had a gun, shoot him in the head. That's a sure way to kill him. If you don't, get yourself a club or a torch. Beat him or burn him. They go up pretty easy.
Well, Chief McClellan, how long do you think it will take you until you get the situation under control?
Well, that's pretty hard to say. We don't know how many of them there are. We know when we find them, we can kill them.
Are they slow-moving, Chief?
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
Read them their rights, Chief. They're entitled to that much.
That's right, Chief. Zombies are people, too.
Bah, sentimental drivel.
How does the old saying go? Some movies are so bad they don't get released, they have to escape? Well, here's one about some guy who escapes from a mental institution.
And believe it or not, the guy doing the escaping is none other than Annette Funicello's old boyfriend, Frankie Avalon.
Yeah, folks, that's a fact. No kidding. And mercifully, no singing.
Don't you want my reason?
Oh, sure, of course I do. I've just never been able to get Venus, if you will, out of my mind.
Well, Bobby, there's something that Frankie just couldn't get out of his mind either. This kooky little ditty that his old dad once taught him how to play on the piccolo.
I've been playing that same thing for over an hour. Don't you know anything else?
I told you my daddy made this for me just before he died. Didn't have enough time to teach me anything else.
Well, maybe you ought to get yourself another teacher.
You're just like all the rest. They tried to take it away from me, too. But I got it back.
The dude with the van, he brought a certain naturalness to his part.
Yeah, until Frankie rearranged his part.
But that's just splitting hairs, Bobby.
As it turns out, Frankie is the object of this teenage girl's dreams.
Some things just never change.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that, because this time the dreams are always nightmares.
He killed her. He's going to kill me, too. I know it. I know it.
Not too much later in the picture, the two of them actually meet face to face.
Make that face to face to face.
When she tells people what she saw, nobody believes her. They think of her as just a kid with an overly vivid imagination. But she finally gets her boyfriend to at least take a look, and guess what he finds?
Jimmy Hoffa.
Nah, just a lot of trash.
I can live with trash.
For the rest of the picture, her life is in peril.
It seems only fair. Frankie's acting career is in peril.
You hurt me. You really hurt me. Peekaboo, I see you.
By the end of the story, poor old Frankie's been folded, spindled, and mutilated.
But he isn't quite dead.
Where you going? Portland. Well, hop in. That's where I'm going.
Caution, boys and girls, never pick up hitchhikers. Especially if they look like they've just gone 10 rounds with Godzilla.
We'll be right back. But first, the advertisers would like you to chew on this.
It's a wrap. Little showbiz talk there. Roughly translated, it means we're getting out of here. Believe me, it's been a lot of fun, and I'd like to thank Bobby Kelton, Rhonda Shear, Bobby Boris Pickett, and that other guy. And I'd also like to thank all those makers of cinema horror schlock. That rarest of breeds. The guys and gals who toiled and slaved to crank these turkeys out. After all, they're the ones who really made this show possible. So, from all of us to all of you, this is John Aston saying, may all your Halloweens be happy ones. Good night. Thank you.